So big things that we're looking at, of course, are really sleep. So there's really not much debate at this point in the game about sleep being a top variable that's really going to impact healing rates and recovery. Stress is obviously massive, and I think everyone's talked about that medically forever, that, your stress it impacts you, but the question is, of course, how and how much. You've got nutrition, which again I think is maybe brushed over and probably the big missing art in our field of rehabilitation and physical therapy and overall sports medicine, but also high end performance that can and should be addressed heavily. And then of course movement. So how are you moving? What are you doing? What are you doing cardiovascularly? Are you sitting still and you're being chilling, being more stagnant? And if so, how's that impacting your overall outcome, your healing potential, and how well you're doing? So let's pick apart doing some of these segments. And we're looking for sleep in the adult population to be 7 hours plus. So we're looking for, if you need to be 7 hours plus, and the evidence behind that is extremely sound. So it's not really even debatable at this point as to whether that's needed or not. If you have less than that, your likelihood of disease or other injury is significantly high, which we know, because we know that fatigue is one of the number one factors for producing injury. So if you're not sleeping well, it's going to be an issue. I think nutrition has a little bit less clarity to it. We use a couple of strong themes in nutrition that I think are really valuable and simple. So one of the things is when looking at food is eat the rainbow. So eat a variety of colors and a variety of options to give yourself this multi-ingredient option, so you get a good balance of nutrients. Another concept would be to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. So I think this is such a super simple tip, but really, really valuable to be like, hey, stay on the perimeter of the grocery store. Stay on the perimeter, that's where all the good stuff is, right? You'll be a little careful. You get to the beer and wine section, and that's the wine's usually on the perimeter. So
hops and grapes, though.
Yeah.
Hops and grapes.
Yeah, it might be organic, but still not okay. Alcohol is one of the worst things you can do for your body, as we talked about our beer selection here today. This one's okay. In short, consumption can be okay, but at the end of the day, it's one of the biggest factors of disease in the future. So keep that in mind. But perimeter of the grocery store is where all your fresh fruits and vegetables are, fresh meats, even the dairy products that are appropriate for those folks. There's lots of good stuff there. The second you go down a middle aisle, your chance of making a bad decision just went through the roof, right? Everything's in a box or a bag and such. So that gives you some basic nutrition. One more nutrition tip would be on protein source. So we use an easy concept to say the less legs, the better. So less legs, the better. Be that fish is probably your best source of protein, chicken and turkey being second on the list, and then your four-legged animals being your next best option for protein sources. So of course with fish would be vegetables as well as a protein source, which has been shown to be really, really positive in many ways. So using some nutrition stuff, some sleep stuff. Of course, stress management is a little bit tricky, but to be able to identify the stressor. We look at stress as, was it a physiological stress? Was it an emotional stress? Was it a financial stress? Was it a workplace stress? Where does that stress come from? And maybe start to just look at what category it's in. It's not our job to necessarily fix that in our field, but I think to recognize it is incredibly important because it's going to determine where you go and how you take that person. But at the end of the day here, I think one thing to talk about is this idea of looking at stress and sleep and those things. And one way to measure that is really looking at heart rate stuff. So we use a test for our adult population and our youth population, frankly, and it's a really good one. We kind of wanted a test that almost anybody can do, and we wanted to get to a maximum heart rate. And we've learned over the years that certainly athletes know what it's like to work hard. So getting them to work hard and do sprints, you can get a max heart rate. It's not that difficult. You can do a VO2 max test, and that's great. What we've learned with the adult population is sometimes the concept of working hard is a bit debatable of what that might actually mean. So we developed a test using a sled where they had to push a sled, which is an inherently hard work, and then do it for 5 minutes. So the goal was to do it for 5 minutes, but if you're done at 2 minutes, that's fine. We'll take it.
That's the test.
Yeah, right. Again, the goal was max heart rate, so we want to get to the point of failure here. So we do that, and we look at recovery strategies. So what was the max heart rate achieved at the time of failure, at the time of stoppage at 5 minutes? And then what was the recovery heart rate look like at 2 minutes and at 5 minutes? And the data here is really tremendous. Russ is the best info here on the data, but it's really tremendous on speaking to people's really stress management and what's their baseline, which we talk about as a base of our pyramid, but what's their baseline function.